there, FlossTube. My name is Verbena, and this is my very first FlossTube video. I hope that you want to stick around and see what I have to say. I am what you call an omnicrafter, at least I've always described myself as an omnicrafter. I started doing crafty, arty things when I was really little. My mom taught me how to sew. And then I went on and I did a whole bunch of classes to get better at it. I've dabbled in all sorts of crafts over the course of my life. And recently I had done cross stitch and needlepoint in my 20s, late teens, mid 20s-ish, and got out of it. Kind of sewing and knitting overtook all of my free crafting time. And recently, my other half and I have been thinking about where we're going. We're in that like 10-year to retirement thought pattern. If you've been there, you know it. If you're not quite there yet, you'll be there, where you work your day job and you do your fun things on the weekend and in the evenings, and you start thinking about, what am I gonna do when I'm not day jobbing anymore? And we have been playing around with the idea about maybe getting an RV and traveling a little bit. So I have been thinking about more portable crafts that can be compact. And while we were out on one of our weekend adventures, we went to a place called Ocean Shores in Western Washington. And I stopped into the quilt shop to look for fabric and check out what they had. And it is the cutest little quilt shop. If you are ever in Ocean Shores or near Ocean Shores, Washington, you need to stop in and check out what they have. But I picked up, let me take my little Hello Sticky away. I picked up a little cross stitch kit. I thought, oh, I remember liking cross stitch. I used to have a lot of fun with that. And one of the things that we do when we travel is, as we're going around, I pick up something crafty, if I can, as a souvenir, instead of a Christmas ornament or a shot glass or spoon or any of those kind of typical things, in addition to postcards and whatnot. I try to pick up a skein of yarn or something that later on, when I'm sitting on the couch in an evening after a day of work and I'm working on it, I get to revisit our trip and think about what we did and what a good time we had. And then with small things, I just shadow box. As we collect things through the year, at the end of the year, I dump them all in a shadow box, and then they just get sealed up, put on the wall. And occasionally we'll look at it, go, oh yeah, I remember that. And you can kind of shake the shadow box and have the things float around. And that is my cat. The perils of filming on the floor in your house. So I picked up this little kit, and as you can see, it is not a dinosaur. It is a dinosaur, like a sour candy. And this kit is it's a DMC kit, and it's from Tuva. And it's adorable. And my other half and I, we have a little dinosaur thing, like a T-Rex thing, that we joke about as kind of one of our little couple jokes. And I thought, well, this will be perfect. I will pick this up. It'll be a great little craft to do. I'll throw it in the shadow box. And as I was working on it, I just remembered how much I used to love cross stitch. And I thought, here it is. Eureka. I have my retirement craft. I have this thing that I love doing, and I have this thing that I enjoyed so much when I was younger, and that I do have quite a few supplies for still, because I am a hoarding crafty pack rat. And and this will pack down small, and I can put it in an RV or in a van or whatever we're going to end up doing. And it's not hot. I mean, as long as the pieces are small. It's not like my knitting where I've got a shawl or a blanket on my lap in the middle of summer when it's broiling. So I was super excited. So I picked the kit up, and I did do some changes. The original kit it's 14 count Aida, and they wanted you to do, let me pull this up so I can tell you accurately. They wanted you to do 2 strands over each cross, and I got maybe a quarter of the way through it and thought, this is too thin. I didn't like how spare it was. So I ended up having to buy the extra DMC, and I just did it, you know, with more. And I can't remember whether I did 3 or 4 strands. I think I did 4 strands over to make it look nice and full. And it's not perfect. It's definitely not. I mean, I'm got years and years behind me where I've not been doing this. But I'm happy with it. I'm happy with it. It's a cute little kit. It got me back into something that I'm really enjoying, and I'm getting better. That's all we can do, right? Is we can get better. And as you can see, I spaced it really poorly, but that's okay because it's just going in a shadow box. I'll just fold the edges over, make a little hanky square out of it, and it will get tucked into my shadow box. If I were going to be framing this, you know, it would be pretty challenging. And also, if you see there's a leaf, I didn't really care about the Monstera leaf. I just cared about the little dino. So from that, I was looking for my next project. And, you know, also again with this whole, like, maybe traveling in an RV, who knows what's going to happen in the future thing, I was like, well, I don't want to buy a whole bunch of projects. And, excuse me, well, I had to pull this off the wall. So the next one that I did, I found Lindy Stitches. I Love You More Than Yesterday. Yesterday you got on my nerves. We've all been there, right? We have all been there. So I did this. I made some mistakes, and I did change the colors up. This is on 16 count Fiddlers. I think it's a Charles Craft. I did it in the in DMC floss, and this one took me a lot longer to work on. I have a lot of other projects that I am trying to settle up right now. But I got done with it. I really enjoyed it. And this one is hanging on the wall over the couch. So, place of pride. And yes. Thank you. Scooch, scooch. Keep going. Okay. So we had planned a trip. We did a trial trip. We borrowed a friend's RV and took a little trip to Arizona to visit some family, and earlier this year. And in preparation for, I needed, if we're really going to try this, I've got to have some cross stitch projects to stitch in the RV, right? So I went to a shop in Portland, Oregon called Acorns and Threads, and the ladies there are very lovely. And I spent a couple hours there getting supplies and impulse items, and I bought a little bit of stash, just a little bit of stash to have options. I bought some fabrics and a big pack of bunches of needles, because I thought, well, you can never have too many needles, and who knows how many I'm going to drop and never be able to find. I found these beautiful linens. There's in just gorgeous, intense colors, and I had in the back of my brain that I really wanted something sparkly. So I was able to find some sparkly linens and Lugana. And I'm not sure what's going on with these two yet. These are just stash pieces. But this one, here, put the needles aside. Well, I will start with something else first. So originally, my first RV project was going to be this. These little boxes are from Michaels. They're $2. They're in their kids back to school education kind of supplies with all the plastic bins and pencil holders. And I purchased 3 of the patterns from Tales from the Sea, Stitches in Time, or Fragments in Time. I'm sorry. I've got, I guess I should reorder those, but I've got 1, 3, and 5. And I don't think I'm going to do the whole series. I think I want to just do a little 3-panel framed, and I'll do it with the mermaid tail on top, or I'm sorry, the mermaid on top, and then the whale, and then the octopus. So that way it's like above and below. Oh no, that's got to be different. Put up with me here. So above the sea, above and below, and below. So those 3 stacked on top. I'm doing it in the Weeks Dye Works, the called for threads, and the fabric I am using it is this beautiful, bright Newcastle linen 40 count, because I wanted an oceany color. I didn't want the white in the background. So I thought this looked gorgeous with the threads, but it is a 40 count. And so I am playing with, I started playing with the, with how I'm going to stitch it. And this is 1 thread over 2. And I think that's what I'm going to do. But this fabric is too dark and those stitches are too small for me to be doing in the RV, driving, you know, having to look up why did we break? Why are we slow? You know, what's going on? So that one is kitted up, ready to go as soon as I have finished the next one. So the next one is again another little Michaels box, because these are great for small projects with small patterns. So when I was at Acorns and Threads, I also picked up the Octopus Bicornu, and this is by Tiny Modernist. You will notice even when I choose more traditional looking charts, they're still a little bit on the modern side. You know, deep in my heart, I love early American colonial country primitive. It doesn't suit our lifestyle out here in the Northwest very well. I have warm, fuzzy thoughts, but I'm a little bit more modern, a little less traditional, and so I have a feeling, you know, if you love samplers and you love really, really traditional stuff, you are probably not going to see that here. The things that I'm gravitating to actually work on are more like, you know, the little cartoon dinosaur and like more modern-y things like this one, like the Octopus Bicornu, right? Let me know. So I'm using this one. She's given you the option to do DMC or anchor. I opted for the anchor because I thought, you know, why not? Acorns and Threads has all of the threads. They have all of the threads. So it would seem it seems sad just to go, oh, I'll just use DMC when I can pick that up locally. I'm in the portion of Western Washington, Puget Sound area where I can drive a couple hours south to Portland, or I can drive a couple hours northeast to Issaquah to get to a needlework shop. Otherwise, I have the standard gamut of like Joann's and Michael's. We'll talk about Michael's in a little bit because they just added, well, Joann's added it too, for floss. You know, and of course I know I have the power of the internet behind me, and I can order anything I want and have it here soon. But when I'm starting out again and I'm refamiliarizing myself with what's out there, it was just so nice. People, if you live in a town with a little needlework shop, independently owned, that's well stocked and has knowledgeable people, and you know, basically your people are right there whenever you walk through the door, just understand how lucky you are. Understand that you are, you are a very lucky person, without having to like take a day off work and drive a couple hours and then stand in a store for a couple hours going, I know I can call them and they'll mail it to me, but do I buy it now? Do I buy it now? Do I buy it, or just, having to make that decision, like it's either now or never, right? So I got a start on this one while I was on my trip. I'm hoping I got enough seam allowance for the stitching. I'm pretty sure I did. That's the thing that it's going to take a while, I'm pretty sure. And I don't want to waste fabric, but I also don't want to end up not being able to do my project. As you can see, I've got significant fraying here, which is making me worry a little bit. If I don't have enough seam allowance to sew this one, then it's just going to end up having to be I'll have to frame it instead of turning into the cushion. And honestly, I'll day to day, I'd probably get more use out of it on the wall anyway. So I'm not too concerned, but that's a thing I've got to work on as a new stitcher. Being in the RV and driving, this highlighter tape for quilter, I think it was developed for quilters from Lee Products. This has been super, super handy because I was able to mark sections off. So that way, especially since this one it's the same thing all the way around. And I went ahead and did the back stitching on some of it because we were visiting family, and one of the family members that we were visiting, I wanted her to see what it looked like what it would look like when it was all done, because as we all know, the back stitching is what animates our projects. So normally I would wait until the very end and do the back stitching, but as a knitter, I always wove I weave my ends in as I go. So I'll like get to the point where I have a couple of ends and then I'll weave them in, so that way, because I can't stand to get to the end of the project and just have 900 ends to weave in and hide. So this might be a carryover from that too. I kind of like being able to say done, like this section is completely done. So maybe in the future I'll keep doing that and doing my back stitching as I go along. Oh yeah, this one does not fit. Let's pattern back in. Oh, and you will notice that I use washi tape from the craft store, like scrapbookers and crafters and all types of people use for all sorts of things, but it's that little paper washi tape. I have a ton of it from, you know, being a crafty hoarder. And it's handy for like marking out where my workspace is here for the camera, and it's handy for marking patterns, and it's handy for sticking needles onto the top of your project bins. It's handy, super handy. So I highly recommend, if you have not gone into the world of washi, that you go into the world of washi and find a couple of rolls that you like. So another project that I had opted to take on the trip, and I got it started. So this is now an official whip, is, let's see here. Let's see here. This project, this beautiful folk art fox, and it is from gathered.how. I'm really bad about not like printing beautiful copies of my patterns. Even the patterns that I purchase, I'm getting old. And I started wearing glasses when I was like 11. So little tiny patterns just don't work for me. I take them to work where I have access to a very nice color copier, and I blow everything up so that way the squares are like an 1/8 inch big, or 6, they're huge. And then I just section everything off. So, but this one is from the gathered.how website. It is so cool. I've got all of my threads. I'm using the called for DMC, and again, I'm using that Fiddler's because I had some left over from my Lindy Stitches project. I am using the same stuff from that same package, and I've got a little bit of a start. I'm using these, we're trying to work on this one in hand. The sparkle that you see is not the fabric, that is my sulky thread, the sliver thread that I used to mark off sections so that way I could keep my count easier. Very funny story. You know how they say just never get rid of anything? Well, last summer, 2 summers ago, I did a giant craft room purge, and just donated. I took everything out and put it in the backyard on tarps, and then for a day and a half I just hard sorted, and I gave away a quart Ziploc bag of sulky sliver, thinking I would never ever use it again. Now, less than 2 years later, here I am doing cross stitch and finding out that sulky sliver, so the only spool that I had left was a random one that I had missed, and it's pink. So oh wait, no, I actually purchased this from a place in Olympia, Washington called Lost and Found Crafts. They are a basically, if they're a place where people donate their used but still useful craft goods, and I think I picked this one up there for just a little bit because I don't think, yeah, I'm pretty sure, yeah, because this one is the sulky big spool, and the ones that I donated were all the little spools. So that is a work in progress, and that was what I left the state for on vacation. In my possession, all my worldly cross stitch goods. And then I went on vacation, and we drove on our way to Arizona. We drove through Las Vegas, and I looked at my other half and I said, I know we're just going through Las Vegas, but there's a cross stitch store. Could we please? And so we went to Stitcher's Paradise. Well, I went to Stitcher's Paradise. He sat in the RV. If you are an RV traveler and you want to go to Stitcher's Paradise, it is in a small strip mall. It is a very busy strip mall. We were there on a weekday. There's a lot of little restaurants in the strip mall, and it was super busy, and we really lucked out, and we got like in the front corner, we got enough space to pull in across, you know, like the required 8 spaces or 10 spaces that we needed to put our little 30-foot RV into. But I would recommend maybe scoping out one of the neighbors and just parking and walking over. But I spent just a little under an hour there, and it's one of those stores. I went back and he said, well, you only spent like 45 minutes. And I'm like, yeah, it's one of those stores where you either spend 45 minutes or 7 hours. She has so many beautiful models up. She has so many beautiful, there is a little tiny room that is just chock full of flats of fabric, so and threads, just drawers and drawers and drawers. So from there, you know, thinking about my stash, I picked up 3/4 yard of 18 count easy count, because I know I will want to do a full coverage piece one day, and I have been fascinated with easy count. I've never used it, so I'm looking forward to finding a project one day that will use it. I also picked up Picture This Plus Nocturne, and this little guy, which is just it says 28 count miscellaneous linen, and it is Cape Codder, and it's just this gorgeous, gorgeous rusty tomato. I, as a good little tourist, picked up this little pest scratchins pattern, Welcome to Las Vegas, and they had the coolest little model up where they had done it dimensionally, so it looked like the classic Welcome to Fabulous Las Vegas sign. So it had that, you know, it followed the shape of the sign. I'm super looking forward to that one as my major souvenir stitch. I picked up Be Like a Crow by Erica Michaels. And see, you know, deep in my heart, I love primitives. And this one just spoke to me. And then this one I got because it was so different. Michael Powell, Mini Beach Hut in Moonlight. And it is a kit. So I thought, well, that's got everything. It's got the fabric. It's got threads. And it's anchor threads, so it's different from the DMC that I can use all the time. And it's such a different look. And I thought, and it looks like a lot of back stitching. I thought, you know, expand my horizons. Kind of looks cool. And I'd heard a lot of things on FlossTube from StitchCon about people who had picked up the sulky spools and wanted to try those out. And I heard about them, I think, first on Steel City Stitchers. And so I picked up, this is the hands-on design color collection. Again, there you can see there's the colors. And I'm sorry, my light is starting to fade. I'm trying to use natural light today, and luckily I have a lot of trees in my front yard, but they are starting to block where the light is. And then I thought that was it, but at the last minute, I impulse bought this, let's take a look here, the Primitive Hair, and this tag says 30 count linen, Pirates, and it's a printed linen. But then there's this little tiny craft color tag that says it's 40 count. So I'm not sure whether it is 30 or 40, but this just struck me as being amazing. Look at that. It's a vintage map with the pirate ship. And I asked her what kind of projects you do on that, and she took me around to the bin where they had the primitive hair and kind of showed me examples of what could be done with it. So I'm going to go on a little research binge, and I am going to find a project that, there we go, we'll just tuck that back on there for now. I'm going to find a project, something spectacular to do with this. It is lovely. So that was, that was 40 minutes in Vegas. Wasn't slot machines. I have, I have everything that I can, I have my money's worth sitting right there in a pile. And then we ended up in Kingman, and Kingman doesn't have a stitchery shop, but they do have the coolest little old downtown. And we walked around and looked in the antique shops and the vintage shops, and there is a used bookseller. And we didn't realize that, I don't know whether it's COVID or whether it's just, it's just Kingman, but they do close a little earlier than we're used to up here in Washington. And the lady that runs the used bookstore, she was still outside, and she was talking on the phone, and we walked up and she's like, "Oh, I'm here, I'm open." So we popped in and just had the nicest browse, and I picked up a couple of, well, 3 vintage cross-stitch books. So Gifts of Nature, and this one is all very things that I kind of remember. I'm liking the idea. There's lots of, there were numbers and the veggies, and it just spoke to me, so I bought it. And then the spray and stitch, which I was really intrigued with. This is, I used to work in the fabrics industry, and there was always these like little, like kind of novelty books that you get where it's like a little, where you're like, okay, it's not the traditional, this is, evergreen type project. This is something that was probably a trend, and but this really intrigued me with the stenciling, and it kind of harkens back to that pirate ship where it's printed. And then I thought, well, there's some really cool ideas here, and I think she's just doing it with, like this book, it's just doing it with craft paint. And I'll have to look a little bit into that. And then I picked up the Mary Thomas's embroidery book with a dictionary, the author of the Dictionary of Stitches. And it's just one of these conglomerate, a little bit of everything, just like, like everything a young lady would need to know about stitches, different types, different styles of crafts. So a little bit of weaving, a little bit of quilting, a little bit of smocking. And I thought that was just something that was going to be really fun. And, some of these books might be catch and release. I might enjoy them for a little bit and then maybe pass them on to somebody. Maybe, we can do that as a thing here on this FlossTube, because I do love shopping, but I also understand that I can't be keeping everything. So that is where I'm. This is it, I guess. I hope you enjoyed watching basically me lay out my cross-stitch existence. And listening to me chat. If you have any questions or you want any comments, I would love to see them. You can comment down below. I imagine that I will be doing a FlossTube once a month. no less than once a month. If something exciting happens or I make really big progress on something. Oh, there is one more thing. There is one more thing. Just the project that I'm actually just finishing. This is our family members that hosted us when we were in Arizona. My other half's mother, so she has the most beautiful cactus garden. It's just gorgeous. She's propagated cuttings and she's planted them all over her yard, and they are just gorgeous. And I found this pattern on Etsy, and if I am a smart little monkey and can manage to do the editing, I will put a picture, because I don't have anything but the chart printed out, but I will put a picture of it. They have 2 cats, and so this pattern, it's cactus cats, I thought would be perfect for them. So I have been nonstop cranking on this. I started this last Wednesday, and it is now Thursday. I cast on last Wednesday evening, and I have been working on it like this is my job. It is 25 count fabric that is, it was just from I had it in a little box of the remainder of what I had from when I used to cross stitch. I don't know what it is, but it's an even weave and it's 25 count. I am doing it with 2/1, and I am using these new anchor spools. And I do like them. They're more matte than the DMC floss, and they feel, if this makes sense, they feel more dry. Like the thread itself feels more dry than the DMC. And I'm just thinking, okay, I've got everything here, and I'm looking at a spool of anchor, or a skein of anchor, and it's about the same. I mean, I'm sure it is the exact same product, but it's very interesting that, I don't know whether it's because I'm used to sewing thread but it does, now that I have this, it feels exactly the same. And I never noticed in the skein of floss how dry the anchor felt compared to the DMC. I don't know what you make of that. But I like this format. It's a lot easier to handle. The spool is still it's still, see if I can, it's just like a floss. It is the exact same thing. It's not like the sulky, where on the sulky it says 1 strand equals 2 strands of floss, and it's plied together, and it is plied so tight that you're not going to be able to separate these easily. I haven't tried it yet, but if it's like their sulky sewing threads, the whole point is to keep it together. But these spools are just like if you had bought a skein of floss. It's just wrapped around a spool. The thing that I don't like about it is that because you can't wrap things back on. So I have these little guys where I just put a Post-it note, and this is my remainder. And yeah, it's cheap, but you know, I don't exactly, it's still good, right? I don't exactly, because that will be the thing, is that I'll use the rest of this on another project, and then I will get to the end of it and I will need, you know, I'll be down to the bitter end playing thread chicken. I did this project. It calls for DMC. Anchor has a translation, so that way you can get it in. It doesn't have, they don't have all of the shades required as a perfect match. So there were a few that I had to make choices about. So like this bright green here is one that I just had to find the best option between the other shades. And then I made the choice to change. These were the little triangles here on the pot were green. I wanted the turquoise blue because for two reasons. One is that I've lost the frame. One is that it matches our family members' decor a little better. So rather than have it just in the green, have it be the blue that matches. And also I picked up a frame for it, which this whole, I'm going insane. There it is. It's behind the pattern. It's right here, which I picked up at Michael's. And so it will be, so that'll go right in there. And I thought that blue was, you know, it's not matchy enough to be matchy, but I think it looks nice with that frame in it, and that frame will, and you can see there's, apparently I have a thing for this type of frame that Michael's is carrying right now with that rustic and that. I wish it wasn't so antiqued, but I think it will look nice, and it's a nice hostess gift, and I'm very proud of myself for getting it done so quickly. There are, you know, if you were going to compare this to the chart, there are mistakes. You'll see that I've got to get rid of this ghosting of the black thread. I went ahead and I did the outline first, and I was cranking so hard on it, and apparently I miscounted. So like, this is a lot wider, and there's a little mistake over here. But I just kind of went with it. You know, it's just like forage on. It's not, you know, this is a thank you gift, and I wanted to get it to them in a timely manner. So I'll get rid of that. I could not, you know, fudge in the fixin'. But the rest of, you know, all the rest of my little mistakes, I was able to fudge a little bit. The pot is from this rim down perfect. But the rest of it, and what I noticed is that, because, you know, this is my inexperience showing again, is that I did 2/1, which looked great in my little swatch that I did on the corner on a scrap, and it looked good. But what I realized, you know, I did the outline, and then as I got into these areas and started doing the top here, I realized this is so dense that I can't, you know, I'm doing these lines back and forth, and they're just overfilling the threads. So I went ahead and tried to do 1/1 instead of 2/1, and it looked thin. I don't like it when the fabric shows through on things like this. It just doesn't appeal to me. So I ended up reverting to my needlepoint days, and I just did tent stitch. So if you don't know needlepoint is, instead of 1 over and 1 across to make a cross, you just do the 1 over. So I just did tent stitch, which is a way of grouping, so that way, you know, you maximize your thread. You don't have as, you know, it's not like a typewriter, because you're not returning with the other cross to end up where you started. So you kind of have to scroll your way through. And so I just did that, and I think it looks nice. I think you know, once again, it's not perfect, but I enjoy it. I'm gonna give it, we're gonna finish up this with this color. That'll go over. I'll try to finish that this morning. And then I'll take a little brush to it, like a soft brush, like a, you know, a soft nail brush, and just brush over it to bring the nap up a little bit and make them just a little bit, you know, more fuzzy. And if any of the threads have, you know, I've done poor tension, or my laying of the stitch wasn't that great, you know, that will fill in case anybody looks at it really closely and sees a bare spot. That little brushing will probably, you know, soften all that up. And then I'm gonna throw it in the frame and get the thank you note written out and get that off to them, and hopefully they will appreciate it. And the lovely thing about when you make something for somebody who doesn't live in the state and rarely comes to visit, you don't worry about what happens to it. You hope that they enjoy it and put it up and look at it and think about you. But, you know, when you make a gift for someone, it's as much for you as it is for them. So, but hopefully they'll enjoy it. And that's what I'm just finishing up right now. So once again, thank you. Looks like it's been just a little over 45 minutes. I really appreciate you watching all the way to the end. And I hope I will see you soon.